welcome to our second review of the evening, and it is Tetsumo Party, specifically Tetsumo Party for the Nintendo Switch, which means that we tag out to Galix, who is our officially designated Switch reviewer at this point, at least until somebody else gets a Switch.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that in mind, take it away, Galix.
So you know that game show in Japan where there's like oncoming foam walls with person-shaped holes in them, and you have to get into position so you don't get knocked off and fall into the pool?
Mm-hmm.
This is the basic gameplay concept of this is that, but sumo wrestlers.
Yeah, I believe it's called Hole in the Wall?
The American version was called Hole in the Wall. I don't know what it was called in Japan.
Yeah. Hole in the Wall work.
Mm-hmm. So the general gameplay loop is, that's pretty simple loop, is that you have basically the shoulder bumpers and triggers control your, the bumpers control your arms and the triggers control your legs, and they just cycle through 3 positions each for the legs and 5 positions each for the arms. The legs have standing straight, doing a split, and doing the sumo squat thing with the bent knees. And the arms have straight down, straight to the side, straight up, and then out with the elbow bent up or down. And it's all goes in order, cycling from the lowest one to the highest one with each button. And on single player, literally all you're doing pretty much is just trying to succeed at as many as you can. It does throw some loops into some tweaks into it where, like, it'll eventually switch which buttons are controlling which limbs. It'll give you a hint of that sometimes and stuff like that. But there's not really a whole lot of customizability aside from that. So in multiplayer, this actually supports up to 8 players. You can have anywhere from 1 to 4 sumos there, and each player can control either a different sumo, or you can control half of a sumo. So you can have like one person and 2 people controlling one person, and then it will start out with them being in control of one left side and right side, but then after a certain amount of time, the color indicators will show you that now one person is controlling the top and one person is controlling the bottom, and then one person is controlling the upper left and lower right, and the other person is controlling vice versa. And it's just, there's a decent amount of variation in what you do. It's just, there's not really any sense of progression. There is progression, but it's very difficult progression to get to, because you initially start out with 2 characters to play as. One is the regular sumo wrestler, and the other one is the sumo wrestler who is dressed up like a ninja. And each of them has 3, like, achievements, which are like, one of them is like, eat 3 sushis in a match, or use 3 clocks, which only works in multiplayer, because in multiplayer, when you have more than one sumo wrestler, it'll send across if you get in position early, you can press a button to go through the wall faster, and that fills up a gauge more, and if you fill up the gauge, it'll do something to benefit you or penalize your opponent slightly, which apparently can slow stuff down. The one we usually saw was the one where it flips some of your controls. But yeah, anyway, you get achievements. Some of the achievements involve doing such and such on a certain stage with that character, and there's no way of selecting what stage you play on. It's randomly decided every time you play. There's the sushi. I think you just have to move your arm into the right position to pick it up when someone randomly shows up with the sushi. But I wasn't sure and failed to do that a few times, so I'm not sure about that. There's one for pulling up your pants a certain number of times, which requires you to have your pants fall down, which I never figured out exactly how happens. So basically what it seems like to me is there's like enough stuff here that it seems like it should be more interesting, but it just, because you have so little control over it, it's not that interesting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a pretty limited experience, and that experience is limiting.
Like, if you could select your stage or select a gameplay mode, or even if there was a slightly different input for picking up the sushi, or if there is one, if it told you about it, because there are also no instructions. And the only options in the game are pretty much language and the volume of the music and the sound effects. There's not even any control remapping, which is kind of unfortunate, because I think I would have been better at it, at least, if it wasn't the 4 shoulder buttons, because it's probably because I'm from the pre-2 shoulder buttons on each side era of gaming. But I have a hard time doing both the bumpers and the triggers at the same time. Anyway. So, for $5, I think this is a fun game if you want to play it with some friends. Just don't expect a whole ton from it. I don't think it's a bad game, but it's pretty limited, so make sure you know what you're getting into.
Bit of a theme. Worth noting, on the PC, the Steam version, the game is $4.99 as well, but it's also part of something called the Monster Couch Party Pack, which is the publisher of the game. Yeah, it comes with the second game, which we have not reviewed. But that package price is $13.58.
How much is the other game alone?
That's what I'm looking right now. Die for Valhalla is $11.99. Yeah, so
if you want Die for Valhalla, which again we know nothing about aside from that it exists,
yeah,
then for $2 this is a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it looks like it's a brawler from the Steam footage.
There are other versions, or there's at least a Steam version of this game which has like actual baked-in achievements instead of just lists of the things for the characters to do. So if you feel like getting a little bit more immediate rewarding, that might benefit. But on the other hand, the Switch is the one that really has. I don't know if it has online multiplayer on the Switch, on the Steam version.
I'm not seeing online multiplayer on Steam, which is always...
that would be a significant issue for this, because this is... I mean, I think it's better as a couch co-op game anyway.
Right.
But yeah, you want to be able to play this with at least... I was playing with 2 people, and it still was kind of boring. It might be a little more interesting if you could play it with 4. I don't know. But regardless, part of it might just be because I'm not great at this kind of game, but I never unlocked any of the other, 8 characters. There are a few. One of them is definitely a panda. There's a skinnier ninja. There are interesting characters, and each character has their own set of achievement things to presumably unlock other characters. So, there is progression, but it's tricky. It requires skill and timing and being good with the shoulder buttons. So that's about all I got. I think it's worth giving a try if you have friends to play with.
All right, then. So that'll about do it for this review. Be sure to tune in after the break as we review Sinker 2.